It's almost impossible to follow that video. I don't know that there are any words after Hadassah's words that pierce and penetrate our heart. It's not lost on me that I'm the only singer or speaker here tonight who does not yet live full-time here in Israel. I want to thank Alex Katz and Kehillat Eretz Hemdah and my dear friend Rav Judah for inviting 750 people for this intervention tonight. It's working. But you still have a lot of brothers and sisters who are not yet here and who are going through their own challenges and feeling the connection, the pain of Israel and these losses from afar. And I want to share with you a little bit of a perspective from them and for them. I can't share anything without first expressing all of our collective incredible gratitude to Kehillat Eretz Hemdah, to Alex, and to the entire team who've put on an amazing, amazing evening tonight. We come, we show up, we sing, we dance, we cry, we laugh. Hopefully we are inspired. You can't imagine the work that goes into it, and we are incredibly indebted to them for it, so thank you. It's also not lost on me the presence of so many heroes in this room, warriors. The soldiers literally fighting on the front line. And where else but Israel does a star singer come to perform in his uniform, having to put the gun next to the microphone? Where else but Israel does a Rav Kehillah, a Talmid Chacham, who's spewing, overflowing Divrei Torah in his uniform, a Sefer V'Asayif, like Rav Pinchas Shlita, B'Reshut Demara Da'atza of Kehillat Eretz Hemdah. Today is day 111. 111. It's so dark, it's so difficult, it's so painful in Israel for those who live here. For you, our heroes, who bear the brunt, who bear it all. And for those Jews around the world who are suffering from the Jewish condition, the rise, the spike of anti-Semitism, and the increased popularity and ease with which it is to hate a Jew. And yet in all the darkness and all the cold, and all the reasons to become depressed and despondent, there are also glimmers and glimpses of light, and that light is so bright. In the last 111 days, we've received a real education. There are assumptions that we had beforehand that are gone, that are shattered. Long-held beliefs and long-held positions and long-held behaviors that are now part of our past. People and practices have changed. Politically, we've shifted. Religiously, people have grown. Socially, there's been an awakening. An awakening to the enemies that surround Israel, an awakening to the enemies who live among us outside of Israel, an awakening to this anti-Semitism. How vile and how viral it is. But my dear friends, there's also been an enormous awakening within ourselves. An awakening about ourselves. On October 7th, Hamas grossly underestimated our people. Surely, in one of their tunnels, in one of the headquarters of their evil, they read the headlines. Israel on the brink of civil war. Jews assimilated and walking away from their Judaism outside of Israel. They saw us as fragmented. They thought we were divided. They thought we were incapable of a response, of coming together, of unifying, of fighting for a shared future. And they were grossly wrong. They were wrong. But here's the thing. Hamas were not the only ones who underestimated us. Chevra, we grossly underestimated ourselves. We had no idea who we are and what we're made of and what we're capable of and how we feel. We had no idea of the kind of resolve and tenacity that we have. Our heroic soldiers who are here and who are everywhere across this land. Their family members who are holding down the fort. Organizations like Kehillat Eretz Hemdah and all those who are giving and volunteering and coordinating warriors who are fighting offline, warriors like my dear friend Hillel Fold who's here tonight fighting online. We had no idea what we were made of, what we have in us. The kind of courage, the kind of bravery, the kind of faith, the kind of family, the kind of future we could forge together. We had no idea, but now we know. And what will we do with it? Now we know, and it's only the beginning. Our collective best is yet to come. Our parsha tells us, "Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo, ki hashpea hishpea es bnei Yisrael lemor." Pasuk describes that when leaving Mitzrayim, while everybody else was packing up their personal belongings, Moshe had one concern. You see, on his deathbed, Yosef had made his children swear that we wouldn't leave him behind. That when we would finally leave Egypt, we would collect and gather, we would carry his bones for burial in the land of his forefathers, Ki hashpea hishpea. And Moshe made good on that promise. Vayikach es atzmos Yosef imo, while everyone else was schlepping their luggage, weighing it to see if it was overweight. Moshe had only one concern. Vayikach es atzmos Yosef imo. And Yabar Ben El wonders, why now? Why here? Why Parshas Beshalach? We left in last week's Parsha, Parshas Bo. That's when they were preparing to leave. That's when Moshe should have gone for those bones. Why did it wait till now? Why in Parshas Beshalach? Yabar Ben El references the Mechilta that there explains, Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef lehodia chachmaso v'chasiduso shekol Yisrael oskim babiza u'Moshe osek b'mitzvas atzmos Yosef. And the Egyptian military and their chariots drowned in the sea, their wealth, their gold, their silver, it washed up on the shore. And as the Jews, this just now emancipated and freed slave nation, stood on the other shore, they couldn't get enough. They bent down, they leaned in, they were collecting all that gold and silver, all those material possessions they had been denied and deprived. Everyone was gathering and collecting and putting in their pockets and in their shirt and under their arm, all that they could. Everyone was collecting wealth except one. Moshe, says the Mechilta, had the wisdom and the righteousness to collect what was the greatest wealth. He didn't pick up gold and he didn't pick up silver. Vayikach es atzmos Yosef imo. He took the bones of Yosef HaTzadik. And the Kli Yakar notes that it doesn't just say Vayikach es atzmos Yosef, he took the bones of Yosef. There's a word that's superfluous, it's unnecessary. And that is the word imo. Says the Kli Yakar, Moshe didn't just make good on a promise. He didn't just fulfill that swear. He didn't just collect the bones because he had told Yosef he would. He took them imo. It shaped and molded who he was. He learned from the life of Yosef. Vayikach imo. It became part of Moshe's future. The Yiturei Torah encourages us, don't read it as atzmos Yosef, the bones of Yosef, but rather as atzmus Yosef. Moshe didn't just take the physical bones. He took the essence of Yosef. Yosef's narrative, his personal story of courage and heroism, the remarkable accomplishment and achievement of rising to greatness, the extraordinary ability to raise a righteous family in a foreign culture and land. Moshe didn't just take the atzmos Yosef, his bones, he took atzmus, the essence of Yosef, and he took it imo. He absorbed it, he integrated it. It became who he would become. What is that atzmus Yosef? That is the short message I want to share tonight. As someone grossly inadequate and unqualified to be speaking to you, but who feels this in the essence of my being, who stands in awe and admiration and endless love to each and every one of you. What is the atzmus Yosef? What is that essence of Yosef's life that we can all draw from? Certainly is how he endured false accusations, sitting in prison, sitting in a pit, sold into slavery, transcending his circumstance, rising to greatness. We couldn't have endured centuries of enslavement in Mitzrayim. We couldn't have gotten through those hard times without absorbing that essence, that courage, that faith of Yosef into ourselves. But I think it's something more. Yosef was violated by his brothers, his own family. They didn't just criticize him, they didn't just neglect him, they didn't just marginalize him. They literally conspired to kill him and settled on selling him into slavery. He had every excuse to hate, every excuse to be resentful and bitter. If anyone was entitled to a civil war with his brothers, if anyone was entitled to revenge and vengeance, it was Yosef HaTzadik, but he didn't. No matter what he went through, no matter how entitled he was, Yosef was a paradigm of Avas Yisrael, of brotherhood, of family, of loyalty, of forgiveness, of focusing on what matters most. He chose to be a family more than to hold on to pain and hurt, more than to feel violated or a victim. He made the choice to connect and to love and to be together and to build a destiny. He let go of a divided history so they could have a shared destiny. And that is the Atzmus Yosef. That is the essence that we all have inside us. How did Yosef do it? How did he do it? We just saw an incredible, extraordinary example of how he did it. He did it by reframing his life. He did it by not feeling a victim, but seeing himself on a mission as an arbiter of his own destiny, of having a purpose, and being put in his role by Hashem. Not random and not chance, nothing coincidental or accidental, but all designed, curated, and choreographed by above for a reason and for a purpose. And while Yosef didn't have access to understand it and didn't feel entitled to, he reframed his life to see himself on a mission with a purpose. So he struggled and he suffered. But he navigated an unfair world. And at the end of it all, when he reveals himself to his brothers, rather than resentment, revenge, or bitterness, he urges his brothers to join him in seeing all of it as Hashem's plan. Al te'atzvu v'al yechar ba'inechem. Don't be distressed. Don't reproach yourselves. Al te'atzvu. Don't be sad. The extraordinary letter Rav Pinchas read. Don't be sad. Be besimcha. Heroes, Jen and Rob Early were here tonight. Jen, who told the gathering, the shloshim of her son, Binyamin Hashem Yikom Damo, she stopped the music. Sing with joy and happiness, not with sadness. Al te'atzvu. We read these words of Yosef and we think that was millennia ago. That's the Torah's hyperbole or metaphor. It's impossible. There are no human beings capable of experiencing such pain and turning to others and saying, Al te'atzvu, don't be sad. There are such human beings. Some are sitting in this room tonight. Hadass, Lowenstern. Tonight is the Shloshim. One of the heroic Kedoshim, a soldier, Ephraim Jackman, Hashem Yikom Damo. His father shared with me he woke up early every day in Gaza. He woke up early every day in Gaza so he can daven with extra kavana and learn Daf Yomi before going to battle. If anyone ever had an excuse to fly through davening, if daven at all, to skip and miss the daf and try to catch up someday, certainly would be a soldier in Gaza. Heroes. Absolute, extraordinary, angelic, role model heroes who model for us the legacy of the Atzmus Yosef, the essence of Yosef in us, to reframe our lives. Al te'atzvu. To be able to see the mission and the purpose, that what this moment demands, that who we are and what we're capable of and how we can come together. To put a new frame around the picture, no matter how dark, no matter how bleak, no matter how painful that picture is in the middle, we can put a frame around it. We can see it in a different light. Rabbeinu Bachaya says the frame that we could put on every picture is the frame of emunah and bitachon. When we lean into that relationship, when we surrender and submit to Hashem, that frame, just like a picture that grows old, a picture that evokes negative emotions in us, but we get a new frame. And now we feel differently about the picture, and we see the picture differently. That picture of our life doesn't change. We can't bring those people back. We can't change the difficult circumstance we're in, but we could put a different frame around it. Reframing allowed Yosef to live and function without anger or outrage or a thirst for revenge. Reframing the picture this way enabled him to forgive his brothers, and reframing could enable us to live like Yosef, to let go, and to come together. To, like Yosef, put family first, to feel brotherhood. No matter what happened in history, to forge a shared destiny. Today was Tu B'Shvat. The energy of Tu B'Shvat is still here. What's the nature of this day? New Year for trees, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan. So it's not just about the Tu B'Shvat Seder, Seudah, eating those fruits, making those brachas. It's beautiful, it's geschmack, it's uplifting, it's environmental, it's friendly to the land. But there's a pnimius, there's something much deeper for every one of us. If you look at the Mishnah, the language is the Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan in the singular, not the plural, because it's a Rosh Hashanah. Today was a new day, a Rosh Hashanah, a new year for each of us that are likened to the field. It's been a long night and the hour is late, so I won't elaborate other than to leave you with this thought. Tu B'Shvat is the middle of the winter. The Meiri says it's the exact middle of the winter season. I come from a place that doesn't have seasons. But here, Yerushalayim, Baruch Hashem, today was wonderful. Yesterday was a little colder. In the dead of winter, it feels cold, and it gets dark early, and the trees are bare, and the ground is muddy or covered with some frost, or depending on if you are, even blanketed with snow. And then the special day arrives in the middle of that winter, the day of Tu B'Shvat. And on the special day, a Tchiyas HaMesim takes place. Something happens underneath the ground. Something happens in that earth. The sap, the sraf, begins to make its way up through the trees to give it new life. Bud, the blossoms, the flowers, eventually that luscious fruit will come out from these seemingly dead trees. From this darkness and this cold, from this dead of winter, there's something brewing. There's something that's happening. There's an energy and a life that is about to burst forth. The Heilige B'nai Yissaschar says, in fact, that Tu B'Shvat you should daven, that this coming year you'll have a beautiful esrog. Esrog, what tree is producing the esrog right now? Because Tu B'Shvat, that sap is beginning to move. The sraf is ola. It's coming up those branches, and it will determine what kind of esrog you're going to have. Sometimes it feels dark and damp. We're depressed and despondent. Moments like this, it feels like a cold winter, and we don't know when it will end. But we need to know with every fiber of our being that there's something happening, not only beneath the ground and beneath the surface, but we're starting to see it rise. It's the indestructible spark of each of our individual and our collective national Tselem Elokim that for way too long, before October 7th was lying dormant, it was still, it was buried, it was barely discernible. We didn't know it was there, but it is ready to surface. It's ready to blossom. It is bursting forth. It's dark outside, not just the weather, the pain. And I want to tell you what I said 2.5 months ago when we gathered in the same place. Kehillat Eretz Hemdah extraordinarily put together that magnificent event then. As someone who does not yet live here full time, I hope you know. And I hope I'm only telling you something that you do know, but you need to know with everything that you are. That wherever Jews are, we are together and we are united and we are with you and we love you. And these are all of our children and all of our nephews, all of our grandchildren, all of our brothers. That all of you are on our minds always and constantly. You're all we think about and you're all we daven for. You're the center of our lives. And we're with you in every way that we can. That we love you and we have endless and boundless gratitude to you. And that we long for and can't wait for the day when Kehillat Eretz Hemdah. There won't be a theater big enough for the night of Chizuk, that we'll come together to celebrate. When that which has been dormant for too long has fully blossomed and flowered. As we're seeing it is beginning to do, the stories that even on this short trip that we are here, that you see each and every day, and I don't need to tell you, are unbelievable. Story I heard yesterday from my sister about a friend of hers son, a lone soldier here, who told his unit in Gaza, even though when people are going home, he said, I'm the last one to leave because I don't have parents who are waiting for me here. I don't have a wife or children who are waiting for me at home. So I'm the last one. Only when we're ready to turn the light out in Gaza, that's when I will leave. I'll be the last out. Everybody has to go home before me. My nephew's MP, who in a battle was shot in the back and is paralyzed from the waist down. And while we focus tragically on the number of casualties that is too high, one is way too high, more than 200 is unimaginable. Those who are injured, whose lives are changed forever, have to be the continued focus of our tefillos, of our energy, and of our efforts. He's in the hospital, paralyzed. His wife needs to be home with children, so his unit on their break from Gaza has been alternating nights to sleep in the hospital to be able to help him until they're going back in next week. Hashem Yishmor should keep them safe. A soldier I met yesterday who in his tank was hit by a missile. And others were injured. He too was in the hospital for several days. And when he got out, though he was entitled to retire, he went right back to the war, right back in a tank, and right back to Gaza. And when I asked him why and how, he said, how could I not? We're not yet done fighting. The spiritual awakening and the awareness, the blossoming that we're all experiencing and feeling in our own ways. But in the mall in Beit Shemesh a few days ago, a person working behind the cash register, covered in tattoos, no kippah, but whose tzitzis were flying. And when I couldn't help it but ask, what's the story? He told me, I've always wanted to do the mitzvah of wearing tzitzis. But I felt silly, I don't wear a kippah. And even though a kippah, he started to darshan, is just a minhag, tzitzis is a mitzvah. But because I didn't wear a kippah, I felt silly, so I didn't wear tzitzis either. But he said, October 7th, I lost many friends at the Nova Festival. And I decided I no longer care what anyone thinks about me. I've put on tzitzis since October 7th. I haven't missed a day. And I won't. But the amazing part about the story, when I gave him a hug, he said to me, he said, I can't thank you enough for looking at me with an ayin tova. People look at me like I'm strange. No kippah, tattoos, and tzitzis. Thank you for giving me that hug, because Jews just need to look at each other with an ayin tova. Don't see what's missing. See what's there. Don't see differences. See what we have in common. Don't see a bitter history. See that shared destiny. The extraordinary chesed being coordinated all over by volunteers. The last chesed event, at the last Eretz Hemdah event 2.5 months ago, the great Yonatan Razel played Ani Mamin. We stood arm in arm and we were swaying and singing. There was someone who happened to be in Israel who's from Florida. A little secret about the rabbinate: when you're a community leader, when you take positions, not everybody loves you. This was an individual who would, let's just say, does not agree with Aryeh Lightstone in his title he gave me, that only my mother believes. And he's made his opinion of me public in many ways, which I won't share with you now. He was here that night. To the point even I was a little concerned. But when we stood and locked arms and began to sing Ani Mamin, he marched down, he walked across the front. He looked at me and he said, is there room for me in there? We gave each other a big hug. He locked arms with us, and we've been in touch and connected since then. What's been dormant beneath the surface way too long is the Atzmus Yosef that each of us carry within ourselves, the capacity for that awakening, the education to learn that not only did Hamas